welcome back to another video, and this one I'm so excited to film about because number one, I think finances have been something that has had a lot of roller coasters in my marriage, but also that I have felt the grace of God in this area and that I have been able to steward my family, since I'm the one that does the finances. Like, I feel so empowering to say that we are getting somewhere and that we are doing something that is significant to our future. So with that being said, I know that finances in a marriage can either make or break a family. I pray today's video will give you guidelines, will give you motivation and biblical inspiration to actually follow through. Let's start with saying that I will have two notebooks, and this one, it is where all my notes are, and then I'm going to be showing some things on live with some examples of things that I actually do that I will be recommending, but that you can also make it your own. And you will find in the description some resources that you and your family can use to make all of the things that I will be recommending. And number three, and this is actually not something that it is in my notes exactly, but I do want to recommend having a calendar that you can put on the wall somewhere that you can see it often, and I will explain why in a second, but let's get started. So my tip number one, it would be mindset. And mindset, it is so important in actually any aspect or discipline that you want to start doing and getting structured, because your mindset will be the perspective that will shift into, are you happy in doing this new habit, or will you be a failure and just not try it anymore? When you start working in the finances area, we need to understand that less is more. So sometimes we see fancy houses, we see really cool things, we see people getting amazing things, but number one, you don't know how they got them. Number two, they could also be in a lot of debt. And number three, is it really necessary for you to be comparing yourself or what your family has to what it doesn't have, instead of counting your blessings? When you start acquiring a more minimalistic aspect of life and the things that you own, you can start expanding and feeling fulfilled in what you already have. So when you start trying to focusing on that and understanding that, I think an actual step that you can do in this mindset area, it is goal setting. And goal settings can be short-term or long-term goals that you and your family want to achieve or want to do. Acquiring things, paying off certain debt, just buying a property, a land, or things like that. Like, that is things that you are looking forward into the future. And when you start getting more clear and having that visual, you can then start making lifestyle changes. And everything that I'm going to be talking about is little by little by little by little. Finances is not something that you rush yourself into, because most of the time human psychology is just not ready to take a huge step. So this is something that you can start going little by little, especially if it's something you have never gotten into the habit of doing. When you start doing lifestyle changes after having a more minimalistic mindset and doing like lifestyle changes, getting to visualize your goals, you can then start living a more frugal life, which is basically not overspending the money that you have. It has a good reason, it has a good cause. So when you start doing that, and I can do a whole video about that later on, but when you start living like that, my tip, it would be so crucial to have a notebook that is designated only for finances and for goals and for things that you want to buy, things you want to pay off. And this is literally like almost almost I think this is like 9 months of recording everything we have done with our money. Once you start with your notebook, we're going to be setting all expenses aside, and we are going to be at least recording our 3 months of just where our money is going, where are we giving it to, who are we giving it to. It's just a recording thing. You can also do this like going to your bank account and checking certain month and just writing everything off. It will be like also very good, at least we did it this way, to just do it on the move and starting to getting closer to how was that we were spending our money. So once you start doing that, you will be categorizing. You're going to be categorizing it into 4 areas, and number 1 is fijo. I'm not really sure how you say that in English. So fijo, like money that is fijo, dinero that is fijo. It would be basically housing, transportation, how much are you spending on groceries, utilities, and healthcare, or just things that you pay off, like internet or certain things like that. So those are things that cannot be changed at the moment, and this is the money that you need to have every month in order to just live. That would be number 1. Number 2, you will be dividing debt. So debt, it can be credit cards, it can be student loans, car loans, house loans, and it could also be loans that you have acquired from family or friends. So this is the money that you need to be paying back. And then we have our 3rd category, which is savings. So you need to be having a savings account, and then you need to be having an emergency fund account, which will basically cover 3 to 6 months expenses. And this is in case that your husband or something happens to the one income that is coming in, that you can have money to grab from, and a little bit more. So if something really unexpected happens, you know that this money is there and it's just open for you to get it. And then your savings is just for future major goals. And then number 3, it will be retirement, but we're not going to be talking about that, but it is something to really consider, and that is really important. We have also miscellaneous, which is basically entertainment, personal care, things that you need, but it doesn't need to be necessary. So entertainment can also be Netflix, Spotify, YouTube subscriptions, and things like that. So now that we have set all expenses aside, we're going to be organizing where your money goes. And this is one of my favorite parts, which is declutter the bank. If you declutter your mind, you declutter your space, and then you start decluttering your bank, guys, it's just, there's no way to go back, honestly. It's just so satisfying to see like all the unnecessary spendings that you're doing to go away. So we can talk about subscriptions, we can talk about spendings that actually are not aligned with your future goals, and we can also talk about fancy entertainment. So if you have your family, just know that you don't need to be going to a restaurant and then to the cinema, to the theater, and buy also popcorn and things like that. Just for entertainment, there are so many ways to be creative and to actually not spend any type of money on fancy entertainments. And we do a lot of things, we go out a lot, and for example, we just bring our own food. We do the cooking and we just bring it to the place. If we go camping, we literally cook everything we need to eat. And if we go like one day to eat outside, it doesn't need to be like in a restaurant or something. So we rather also spend our money in like local artisans and things that will actually cherish us a little bit more. or experiences. Like, you can choose. Once you start decluttering everything, we can talk about structure. In this, you're going to be seeing a page, and this is like basically where you can track and see all the next payments, and you need to analyze if you're getting paid or your husband is getting paid by weekly, monthly, and however it is. So for example, you have a bi-weekly checks coming in, and it would be, for example, 7 and 21 of November, and then we have 5th and 19th of December. So what happens when you have like literally this in a schedule and in a page where you can visually see it, you can start visualizing what is it that you need to pay. So the must, and this can be like tracking the exact due date of everything, and to be able to pay on time so you don't get a fee for paying late. So those are the must. You can start dividing your categories, and you can also start adding any inconvenience or to-dos. So this can be, for example, something that is not monthly, but that it needs to be done, and you can start like already planning ahead months before it even happens. So it can be a car tune-up, the car annual fee, the labs, any doctor's appointments, expensive laboratories. And then once you can start like organizing yourself and organizing your calendar, you can realize that the money that needs to be put aside beforehand, that will get you to be prepared and allow you to not get into more debt. Because usually when unexpected things happen, you would go like charge it on your credit card, or you would take the money from your savings account and you're like, oh yeah, I can pay it later. And you can totally do that, there's no problem with that, but usually that doesn't happen, and that's a problem, because then the savings starts going down, and then you get frustrated, you start getting into more debt, getting money from here, getting money from there, when it could all have been prevented, just simply planned out. Another tip that I'm going to be giving, it would be projections. And I love doing this because projections can help us visualize how much time we're going to be needing in order to pay a debt, or in order to buy a certain thing, or in order to buy something even major, to make major decisions in the future. Projections are like one of my favorite things to do. You can do this by keeping count of the money earned in a year, like every check that you're getting, keeping count of the debt owed, and you can start projecting to the last checks, how much is it going to be to pay off a certain amount of debt, or how much is it going to be to save up a certain amount of money, or how much is it going to be, like for example on December and you have multiple littles and you want to buy certain things, how can you make it more conscious and start planning ahead, even like from summer or August or something like that, and not wait until the last moment to take money out of a place that it doesn't exist. Projections are just such a cool thing, and literally you can say, okay, in a year this will take me a lot of work, I need to make this much more certain amount of money in order to make this goal, in order to get this thing. So now we're going to be getting into actually how to pay debt, and I'm going to talk about Dave Ramsey here because I feel like that's where I have learned how to pay debt, honestly. But if you haven't heard from him, he's like a master in finances. He knows a lot about money and just credits and all of these things, and he gives 2 specific methods. And one, it is the first one I'm going to talk about. It's called the snowball effect, and it's when you take like the smallest loan and you put it to the top, and then you start getting from smallest to biggest. So you start putting the money on the smallest account, and then the minimum payments on the rest. So when this first one gets paid, then you take this money and add it to the second one, while also what was already being put onto that debt. So the point is to keep putting the money that you're setting aside to here, and then to the third one, until you actually close the list that you have. And that's the first one. And then there's the second one, which is called the avalanche method. And the avalanche method is a more logical one. So that one is basically taking the highest interest on a loan and putting that first one in, and you pay that one, then you start paying the second with the highest most interest, and then it's like basically the same of the snowball, but just with the highest interest. These two are so good. I feel like for our family, what has worked the best is the snowball method, because you start seeing everything getting crossed, and it just pumps you up and into like a more psychological reward feeling, and it just keeps you motivated. You want to keep going, you want to continue, you get like this adrenaline freak kind of thing that you want to pay absolutely everything off. So for us, what works is the snowball method. It would be to analyze how long it will take you to pay off debt, either with each one, and you can do that with the projections. And like I mentioned, which is the most psychological rewarding to you and your spouse. When you're able to actually complete and pay off a debt, what will be your reward, your actual reward, in order to deal with frustrations? In the beginning, I think this is very essential, because you can kind of like get trapped into, oh, we're not seeing any progress, but you're actually progressing. But because we're humans, we just need to see things or something. So at the beginning, I would take like $40 and go to the thrift shop and just buy things from the thrift shop. That was my reward back then, but now I am much more disciplined, and I don't need to buy anything that I actually don't need in order to just feel satisfied or rewarded with certain things. I do want to mention this little tip right here, which is to write off all of the debt you have, a nice and Bible verse that really speaks to you, and actually hang this somewhere that you can be constantly seeing this. And once you start crossing like all debt, do this with your spouse and just start crossing it together, because I swear this gives like such an amazing adrenaline. And then when you're done, you're gonna be literally debt free, and you saw it all along. That is like a very important thing, because we need to understand that we're not going from being into debt to off debt in just a day. This can take a year, this can take 2 or 3, but I know that if you put like the maximum effort, you and your spouse, you can pay it off so quickly, because I feel like when it's a teamwork, it's just so much better. So that leaves us with our next tip, which it would be to budget. And this is a favorite word in the finance area, but it's just so important, because budgeting will not only let you know where is your money going, but where does it need to go. So for everything, just do a budget and be disciplined enough to stick to it, which is the hardest part. And I can understand why, but if you have it visually, if you know, and you're already dividing your money into categories, you know for what every little cent is for. So there's no way to make it so hard if you have all of this into visuals, and your money just goes floating around. It's just not possible when you have the structure and the system for you, laid out for you. I'm gonna talk about the importance of teamwork, and I feel like in every partnership there will be somebody that is nerdy, and then there will be somebody that is kind of like more chill back. And in this sense, I feel like I'm the one that's extremely extremely nerdy about this, and I just love studying this and doing finances overall. And my husband is the one that is more chill, and which is really cool. It's fine, but at the beginning I was just like taking everything on, and I was not including him, and he was not like really showing much interest in being part of. So in this past months I do what I do, and then I take him and I sit down and I explain everything that I'm doing to him so he can know and actually make him part. And when I'm paying things, he has recently like been more involved. He wants to see how I'm doing it. He wants to learn, which is so cool for me because I just love doing that, actually, to open up myself now because he wants to be part of it. So that's like a really cool growing thing that we're going through, and there's no better teamwork than your marriage. So you got to make this work, because finances can be a huge discussion topic for any day of the week, honestly. And when you're both together, when you're both aligned, when you know where you're heading towards, what is the purpose of God into your lives, there's no way that the enemy can enter a place that is unbreakable. I want to finish up with some Bible verses, and I want to talk about Proverbs 31, and I'm going to put here the Bible verse. But what I want to say about the Proverbs 31 woman, if you haven't read it, it's about this woman who is so wise. This woman that wakes up early, this woman that manages the finances of her household. She's also a merchant, she's also selling, she's also doing things with her hands. So she's using the creativity and the gifts that God has given to her in order to provide for her family. And I feel like there's so many ways to provide, but the Proverbs 31 woman shows us how to be wise with our money, how to consider things before buying it, because she buys things, she buys land. She's a very powerful woman, and I feel like every time I want to slip back, or I'm just like, oh, whatever or something, I think about her, and it's just a huge inspiration because that's what I aspire to be to my family. And then we have Psalm 37:4, which is one of the things that has helped me the most. It says, "Take delight in the Lord, and I will make your heart desires come true." And I feel like take delight is the key here, because sometimes we can get so frustrated with not having things on the time that we want, on the timing that it needs to be happen, on when we want it, on when our flesh is desiring it. And it is like through those moments that a certain thing is not happening, or you cannot buy this at this time, take delight in the Lord, and He will make it happen. He will make your heart's desire come true. And this has helped me a lot in my marriage, especially because I was the one who was getting so frustrated, but at the same time my husband is the one that is working, and is like the one taking all of this responsibility. So how can I support it instead of break it, instead of putting a burden that it does not need to be there? So it is take delight in the Lord, and that has helped me so much. And then the other Bible verse that I'm going to be finishing off is in Isaiah, and it says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." And yes, yes, Lord, please, when the time is right, just give me when the time is right, and that's all that I need. Thank you so much for watching. I do want to keep doing more videos like this, more of our process. We're currently on our last 2 debts that we're paying off, and I'm so happy of how much we have accomplished in this time. And if you want to tune up to the story and how we keep doing it, just subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.